F1 Fantasy may look like a game where you simply pick 5 drivers, 2 teams, and off you go to the races. But it's a little more complicated than that. That is, if you want to score well. Hi, my name is Quinton from BoxBox F1 Fantasy, and I'm going to give you the knowledge and the tools to take you from a blank slate to the best bang for budget team that you can build to kick the season off with. And let's get straight into it. Now, what is F1 Fantasy actually? It is a budget building tool that you play over the season of the Formula 1 season. So we start with the first race of the year and we go all the way up to the last one. And between races, your drivers go up and down in value. And what you want to do is build the best asset portfolio you can, getting a nice balance between scoring good points and increasing the value or the budget of your team. Now let's get into the basics. Like I said, you choose your 5 drivers, 2 constructors, and their price goes up and down based on their performance. Driver scores are based on how they do in qualifying and the race. Constructors' score is the aggregate of both the drivers and then whatever bonuses the team itself scores. Think of this as your investment portfolio. You choose a diverse class of assets to start off with. We all start with $100 million in our budget, and then we trade them in, week out, according to their performance, and we build up our points bank and our budget as well. And one thing to note here, long-term value growth far outperforms short-term spikes in points. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Now let's break down the driver scoring just a little bit. I've got a video that specially talks about all the nuances of the scoring and so on, so check it out here at the top somewhere on the screen. The little card will come up. So check that video out if you want to know more about how the scoring works. So basically, if you're in the top 10 of qualifying, you score some points. You don't set a time in qualifying, you get -5 points. And in the race, you get points awarded to you from 1st to 10th place. First being 25 points, going down all the way to 10th place where you only score 1 point. Where a lot of budget drivers come into their own is with points gained and overtakes made. If a driver starts a bit out of place, they had a bad qualifying, and they make overtakes during the race, they score points per overtake that they make, and per position gained as well. There is a little bit of a difference between the two, and in my scoring video I break it down. But basically, if someone crashes ahead of driver 22, for example, so you start in 22nd place, 3 cars ahead of you crash out, you gained 3 positions. You didn't overtake them, but you gained 3 positions, so that's automatically 3 points for that driver. Another bonus that drivers can get is if they get the fastest lap of the day, and if they win Driver of the Day award based on public votes, you get another 10 points. Now you must note that these 10 points for Driver of the Day only counts towards the driver. It is not included in the score for the constructor. Occasionally, well, more than occasionally, this year specifically, we will have what we call sprint weekends. A sprint weekend basically has a different format in that it includes an extra mini little race. Usually on a normal weekend you've got 3 practice sessions, 1 qualifying on Saturday and then your main race on Sunday. Free practice 1 and 2 usually take place on Friday, with 1 practice session on Saturday as well, qualifying on Saturday and then the race on Sunday, as I mentioned. Now sprint races, sprint weekends, we only have 1 practice session on Friday. We've got the sprint shootout or the qualifying for the sprint race on Friday as well. Then the actual sprint race on Saturday, and following the sprint race, we've got qualifying for the race on Sunday. Now, only the first 8 places in a sprint race are awarded points, but each point counts. And the same goes for positions gained and lost. Fastest lap in a sprint race is worth 5 points, and if your driver does not finish, is disqualified or anything like that, then it's minus 10 points as opposed to the minus 20 in a normal race, full-length race. Speaking of constructor scoring, like I said, constructor score is putting together the scores of both the drivers and adding on any of the bonuses they may have qualified for. And here on screen you can see the different bonuses that constructors can get. If one driver reaches Q2, 1 point. Woo! If both drivers reach Q3, or the last part of qualifying, the constructor scores an additional 10 points, which is nothing to scoff at in my opinion. An interesting one that I quite like are the pit stop time bonuses. If a team makes a pit stop under 3 seconds in any point of the race, they get 2 points. Less than 2.5 seconds, 5 points. Less than 2.2 seconds, 10 points, and so on. And you get extra 15-point bonus if you set a world record pit stop. It's unlikely to happen given some changes in the pit stop procedures, but just know the current world record is 1.8 seconds for a pit stop, which was set back in 2023. Now, with the scoring basics out of the way, now we can move into some important general guidelines. Most important, like any investment portfolio, you want to diversify. Don't go all in on one power unit or just 2 asset classes. For example, one of my teams I'll show you later have quite a few Ferrari assets. And if you have assets that are purely powered by Ferrari engines, you might run into some trouble should any mechanical issues crop up. Like I mentioned earlier on, budget growth matters a lot, especially in the beginning. And at times it's better to sacrifice a few points to gain a bit of budget instead. It gives you extra flexibility down the road. On sprint weekends, the best scoring teams are usually based around 2 A-tier constructors. What is A-tier constructor or A-tier driver? The assets in the game are divided into 2 categories: A-tier, B-tier. Any asset, driver, or team equal to or above $18.5 million in the game are considered A-tier. Anything below that, B-tier. A-tier assets go up in value by either 0.1 or 0.3 million, if I'm not mistaken. 0.1, 0.2 or 3. I'll check that now. Now, so the biggest budget gains you usually get from budget drivers or B-tier drivers and constructors. It's also good to try and carry some transfers over to the following week if you can. So try to not necessarily do 2 transfers each week. You are allowed to do 2 transfers without penalty each weekend. More than that, you get minus 10. So try to stick to maximum of 2 transfers per week. There are cases where you need to do more changes, and that is where the wildcard chip comes in. And in my chip video, I discuss that in more depth, so be sure to check out that video. Lastly, try to keep some budget in hand to allow you to make quick changes without needing to shuffle around your whole team. And here's an example of that. We've got 2 8-year drivers, Russell and Antonelli, fantastic Mercedes powered drivers. Then we've got a solid constructor, Ferrari. So here we've got 2 Mercedes powered assets, 1 Audi, 2 Ferrari, so Behrman and the Ferrari constructor. Obviously, we've got Racing Bulls, which has got the Red Bull power unit, and then also Colapinto, which is Alpine, which is also Mercedes powered. So here's a nice little mix of different assets, you're spreading your risk quite a bit. So this would be a very safe bet going into the first week. And this will allow you to pivot to another team very easily for the sprint weekend. And here we have another example. Solid 2 A-tier drivers, Leclerc and Russell, one A-tier constructor and a B-tier constructor as well. And here you can easily switch out George Russell, for example, and bring in a cheap driver like Perez or Arvid Lindblad. And then for your constructor, you can switch Haas out with Mercedes or even Red Bull. And same thing here, we've got a 2 A-tier constructor lineup now. So this is the kind of lineup you would like to go into a sprint with, where usually constructors rake in more points as opposed to just having both drivers by themselves in your team. And of course, you want to keep your make sure that the budget drivers you've got in here are set to go up in value. And how can we know how they're going to go up in value? Well, so it just so happens that there is a tool for that. Now, if we go here to this site, f1fantasytools.com, we've got a fantastic toolkit here. It is a simulation-based and odds-based simulation website where you can insert your maximum budget, you can include or exclude specific drivers from your team, and the same with constructors, and it will calculate the most optimal team for you. Now, we're all starting with $100 million of budget, and right now, as the simulation stands, and this is just based on the testing data we've got so far this preseason, it is saying that this team right here will score the most points between all simulated teams, 168 points. Now, if you want to instead see which team is simulated to gain the most budget, you can just filter here and it will tell you this is the team simulated to gain the most budget, 0.9. But maybe we don't like this lineup. Let's say I don't want Racing Bulls in here. Let's say I want Ferrari in here. Let's put them in. So Ferrari, say, and I want to exclude Racing Bulls. Exclude them. Now you can see the lineup has changed. Now I've got Ferrari, Haas, Leclerc, Antonelli, Behrman, Bottas, and Ocon. Expected points, 151, very solid. And price gain, 0.8, fantastic. But let's see what's the maximum expected points we can score. 168. Okay, let's see. But let's say I want to exclude Lawson, for example, or I want to exclude McLaren. I don't like McLaren. Let's put them out. I do like McLaren. This is just for an example's sake. Then it will recalculate. Oh, Mercedes, Ferrari, 167 points, but 0 budget gain. You see here. Oh, okay, 0.83. Still this line up here. So you can go back and forth here, and as the weeks progress, your budget will increase and the team recommendation will change as well. So play around with this fantastic site, and it will get updated after free practice, and then it will give us a much better idea of the actual pace of each driver and constructor. Now, speaking of the teams that we can play around with, let's have a look here. For example, I mentioned that some lineups allow you to pivot towards a 2A tier constructor lineup. Here, for instance, we've got 2 A-tier drivers right now, Russell and Antonelli. Let's imagine I run this lineup for Australia, it goes well, but now we're going into the Chinese Grand Prix. I would rather have 2 A-tier constructors as opposed to 2 A-tier drivers. So how can we do that? Okay, we've got a bit in the bank, but let's take out Russell, and then we can take Haas out and bring in someone like Mercedes, for example. Probably our budget will go up. Haas will go up by 0.6 and Mercedes by 0.3, and that'll give us the necessary points we need to afford someone like Arvid Lindblad or Gabriel Bortoleto. But let's say we don't go all the way up to Mercedes. Let's go to Red Bull Racing. Then we've got enough budget to bring in someone like Bortoleto, Nico Hülkenberg, Liam Lawson, whatever we want. And this is a much more solid lineup for the sprint weekend. 2 solid constructors. We're splitting our risk here across Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes power unit, I forgot whose power unit they use, and Red Bull power unit as well. So here we've got a nice little mix of power units and risk distribution here. So play around with this, see what team you like, use this team calculate to help you see how much budget you're going to gain versus points gained, etc. And with that, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments or send them to me directly on Twitter. Follow me on there as well. And be sure to not miss my video for tomorrow. We're going to talk about my team selection for the Australian Grand Prix. We're going to talk about some variations of the team and some question marks that I still have around some assets. So be sure not to miss that for anything. And I'd like to give a special shout out to Rain Fantasy. He's putting out some fantastic content. Please go over to his channel, like and subscribe, have a look at his videos, and also have a look at him on Twitter. That's where most of the F1 fantasy community hangs out during the week. And please like and subscribe if you liked this content, want to see more of this, and if you dare, join my fantasy league. Use the code on screen, see if you can beat me by the end of the season. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.